Ruthless Duke hunts promised bride, but the Earl's daughter was betrothed to another lord. She was promised to another man, a gentleman, a safe choice, a love built on friendship and years of knowing each other. But when the most ruthless duke in all of England declares he will have her, no matter the question, no matter the scandal, no matter who stands in his way, everything she thought she knew about duty, desire, and destiny is about to be torn apart. Because Anthony Hobbs, the Duke of Ravenshire, doesn't ask permission. He doesn't negotiate, and he never ever loses. Before we dive into this forbidden love story that will leave you breathless, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss what happens when a ruthless duke decides to hunt the one woman he can't have. Trust me, the twist in this story will leave you shook. Now let's get into it. Tonight in the glittering ballrooms of London's elite, Lady Molly Pearson is celebrating what should be the happiest night of her life, the formal announcement of her engagement to Joe White, Viscount Ashford. She's known him since childhood. She trusts him, she cares for him, she's safe with him. But across the crowded ballroom, a pair of dark, penetrating eyes have locked onto her. Eyes that belong to the most dangerous man in England, Anthony Hobbs, Duke of Ravenshire, a man who has built an empire through ruthlessness, a man who takes what he wants without apology, a man who has just decided that Lady Molly Pearson belongs to him. One dance. That's all it takes to ignite a fire that will consume two families, shatter a lifelong friendship, and force Molly to choose between the safe, predictable love she's always known and the dark, dangerous passion that threatens to destroy everything she's ever been taught to value. What happens when a ruthless duke decides to hunt you? What happens when your heart betrays everything your mind knows is right? And what happens when the man you're promised to refuse to let you go without a fight? This is a story of obsession, forbidden desire, and the thin line between love and possession. Because when Anthony Hobbs wants something, he doesn't just pursue it. He hunts it. He claims it. He owns it. And Lady Molly Pearson has just become his prey. The ballroom of Westbrook Manor glittered like a jewel box, crystal chandeliers casting dancing light across the cream and gold walls. Lady Molly Pearson stood at the top of the grand staircase, her hand resting lightly on her father's arm, and tried to remember how to breathe. This was supposed to be the happiest night of her life. "Smile, darling," Lord Edmund Pearson murmured beside her, his voice warm with pride. "All of London is watching." Molly obeyed as she always did, curving her lips into the practiced expression of a contented bride-to-be. Below, 300 guests turned their faces toward her in a sea of silk, jewels, and anticipation. Tonight, her engagement to Joe White, Viscount Ashford, would be formally announced. Tonight, the path she'd walked since childhood would become official and irrevocable. So why did she feel like she was walking toward a cliff edge? "There's my beautiful girl." Joe appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his boyish face lit with genuine joy. 26 years old, with sandy hair and kind gray eyes, he looked exactly like what he was. A good man. A safe man. A man who had been her friend since they were children, playing in the gardens of their neighboring estates. Molly descended the stairs, her rose-colored gown whispering against marble, and placed her hand in Joe's offered palm. His touch was familiar, comfortable, like a well-worn glove. "You look stunning," Joe whispered, squeezing her fingers. "I'm the luckiest man in England tonight." "You're too kind," Molly replied automatically, the words she'd been trained to say, the role she'd been trained to play. But as Joe led her onto the dance floor for their first waltz as an engaged couple, Molly couldn't shake the hollow feeling in her chest. She loved Joe. Of course she did. How could she not? He was gentle, honorable, and devoted to her. He would be a wonderful husband. So why did wonderful feel like a cage? "What's wrong?" Joe asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "You seem distant." "Nothing's wrong," Molly lied, forcing brightness into her voice. "Just overwhelmed by all the attention." "Well, get used to it, future Lady Ashford." Joe grinned, spinning her under his arm. "After tonight, you'll be the talk of—" He stopped mid-sentence, his body going rigid. Molly followed his gaze to the ballroom entrance, where a ripple of shocked whispers was spreading through the crowd like wildfire. A man stood in the doorway, Not just any man, the man. Even from across the room, Molly could feel the power radiating from him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead and eyes so black they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He wore his evening clothes with the casual arrogance of someone who knew expensive tailoring was wasted on perfection. "Who is that?" Molly breathed. "The Duke of Ravenshire," Joe replied, his voice tight with something Molly had never heard from him before. Fear. Anthony Hobbs, but everyone calls him the Raven. Why wasn't he on the guest list? Because no one invites the Raven, Joe said grimly. He simply appears where he wants to be, and no one is foolish enough to turn him away. Molly watched as her father hurried forward to greet the unexpected guest, his face a mask of diplomatic welcome that didn't quite hide his displeasure. The Duke acknowledged the Earl with a slight nod, his expression utterly indifferent to the chaos his arrival had caused. And then his eyes swept the ballroom. Molly felt the moment his gaze found her. It was like being struck by lightning. Time seemed to slow, the music fading to a distant hum, the glittering crowd blurring into insignificance. Those dark eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch, made her skin flush, made every proper thought in her head scatter like startled birds. He stared at her for 3 seconds. 4, 5. Then slowly, deliberately, Anthony Hobbs smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't a polite smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. "Molly?" Joe's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Molly, are you listening?" She tore her gaze away from the Duke, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said stay away from him." Joe's grip on her waist had tightened almost painfully. "The Duke of Ravenshire is dangerous. He destroys everything he touches." "Don't be dramatic, Joe. He's just—" "I mean it, Molly." Joe stopped dancing, looking into her eyes with unusual fierceness. "Promise me you'll stay away from him." Before Molly could respond, a deep voice cut through the space between them like a blade. "Forgive the interruption." Anthony Hobbs stood 3 feet away, devastating in his evening black, his dark eyes fixed on Molly with that same predatory intensity. Up close, he was even more overwhelming, taller, more commanding, radiating a dangerous masculinity that made Joe look like a boy playing dress-up. "Your Grace," Joe said stiffly, not releasing Molly's hand. "This is a private moment." "I'm aware." Anthony's lips curved slightly, though the expression held no warmth. "I wanted to congratulate the happy couple personally." His eyes never left Molly's face, and perhaps claim a dance with Diana, the bride-to-be, if her intended doesn't object. It was phrased as a request. It sounded like a command, and the most terrifying part, Molly wanted to obey. Joe's fingers tightened possessively around Molly's. "Actually, Your Grace, Lady Molly's dance card is quite full." "Is it?" Anthony's gaze finally shifted to Joe, and there was something almost amused in his expression. "How unfortunate. Lady Molly, is your dance card truly full, or is your betrothed speaking for you?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Every eye in the ballroom had turned toward them. Molly could feel the weight of society's collective stare and could practically hear the gossip already forming on painted lips. The Duke of Ravenshire here, requesting a dance with an engaged woman. On the night of her engagement announcement. This was how scandals were born. Molly began, her voice catching. She should say no, should smile politely and decline, should do exactly what Joe wanted, what her father would want, what every rule of propriety demanded. But when she looked into Anthony's dark eyes, the word that escaped her lips was, yes. Joe's sharp intake of breath was audible. "Molly." "One dance," Molly said quickly, extracting her hand from Joe's grip. "It would be rude to refuse a duke, wouldn't it?" The excuse was flimsy, and they all knew it. Anthony extended his hand, palm up, waiting. "Shall we?" Molly placed her hand in his, and the moment their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. His fingers closed around hers, larger than Joe's, stronger, more possessive, and she felt her breath catch for the second time that night. He led her onto the dance floor as the orchestra, reading the room perfectly, launched into a waltz. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, every guest riveted by the unfolding drama. Anthony pulled Molly into position, one hand settling at her waist with an intimacy that should have been improper, his other hand engulfing hers. Up close, she could see the sharp planes of his face, the slight scar along his left eyebrow, the way his jaw flexed as if he was holding back words. "You're staring," he said softly as they began to move. "You're staring at me," Molly countered, trying to steady her racing heart. "Yes." No apology, no explanation, just acknowledgement. They danced in silence for several measures, and Molly became acutely aware of how different this felt from dancing with Joe. Anthony didn't guide her, he commanded her. Every movement was precise, controlled, utterly confident. He led with the same authority he probably used to run his business empire, and her body responded instinctively, following without thought. "Why are you really here?" Molly finally asked. "You weren't invited." "No." His thumb stroked across her waist, a gesture so subtle no one else would notice. But she felt it like a brand. "I wasn't." "Then why?" "I saw your portrait," Anthony interrupted, "at your father's club last month. He was showing it off, boasting about his daughter's upcoming marriage." His eyes bored into hers. "I knew then that I had to meet you." Molly's pulse thundered. That's absurd. You don't even know me." "Don't I?" Anthony spun her expertly through a turn, pulling her slightly closer than propriety allowed. "You're 23 years old. You speak 3 languages. You spent a year studying art in Florence against your mother's wishes. The only time you've ever openly defied your parents. You read philosophy when you think no one is watching. You have a mind sharp enough to cut, but you hide it beneath pretty smiles and perfect manners because that's what's expected of the Earl's daughter." Molly's blood ran cold. "How do you know all that?" "I make it out of my business to know things." His expression didn't change. "Especially when those things matter to me." "I don't matter to you. We met 5 minutes ago." "Did we?" Anthony's hand tightened fractionally at her waist. "Or have I been preparing for this moment since I saw your face in that portrait and realized I'd spend the rest of my life regretting it if I let you marry that boy without ever knowing what it felt like to have you in my arms?" Molly stumbled. Anthony caught her effortlessly, steadying her without breaking stride. "You're insane," she whispered. "Possibly." He smiled again, that predatory, dangerous smile. "But I'm also honest. Tell me you don't feel it." "Feel what?" "This." He pulled her even closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke. "Tell me your heart isn't racing. Tell me you're not wondering what would happen if you let yourself want something other than what's been planned for you since childhood." "I love Joe," Molly said, but her voice lacked conviction even to her own ears. "Do you?" Anthony's tone was almost gentle now, which somehow made it more devastating. "Or do you love the idea of Joe, the safety of him, the way choosing him means you don't have to choose at all?" "You have no right." "I have every right," Anthony interrupted, his voice dropping to a rough whisper, "because I've spent 10 years being exactly what everyone expected me to be. Ruthless, cold, alone, and I won't make that mistake with you. I won't let you spend your life wondering, what if, the way I have." "What if what?" Molly demanded, trying desperately to remember why this was wrong, why she should pull away, why her body was betraying every principle she'd ever been taught. "What if you'd been brave enough to choose passion over duty?" Anthony's eyes burned into hers. "What if you'd been brave enough to choose me?" The music swelled toward its crescendo. Around them, the ballroom spun in a blur of candlelight and crystal, but Molly could only see him, only feel him, only hear the impossible words falling from his lips like bombs designed to destroy her carefully constructed life. "This is my engagement ball," she said weakly. "I know. I'm going to marry Joe in 3 months." "No," Anthony said with absolute certainty. "You're not." The music ended. The spell should have broken. Instead, as Anthony released her and stepped back, bowing with mocking formality, Molly felt like she'd just been set on fire. And the Duke of Ravenshire, watching her with those knowing dark eyes, looked like a man who had all the time in the world to watch her burn. Molly didn't sleep. She lay in her canopied bed, staring at the embroidered silk above her, replaying every second of that dance. Every word, every touch, every moment when her body had responded to Anthony Hobbs in ways it had never responded to Joe. What was wrong with her? Joe was kind, loyal, honorable. He would be a devoted husband, a wonderful father, a stable partner. He represented everything a rational woman should want. But when she closed her eyes, she didn't see Joe's gentle gray gaze. She saw dark eyes that promised danger and passion in equal measure. Molly, a soft knock preceded her best friend entering without waiting for permission. Lady Beatrice White, Joe's younger sister, swept into the room already dressed for the day in a cheerful yellow morning gown. I brought tea and gossip, though I suspect you're already drowning in both. B. Molly sat up, grateful for the distraction. What time is it? Nearly noon. Mother said to let you sleep after your exhausting evening. Beatrice set down the tea tray and fixed Molly with a knowing look. Though from the circles under your eyes, I'd say you didn't sleep at all. Care to tell me what the Duke of Ravenshire said to you that has all of London buzzing? Molly's stomach dropped. It's that bad? Darling, you danced with Anthony Hobbs at your own engagement ball while your betrothed watched. Yes, it's that bad. Beatrice poured tea with practiced grace. The betting books at White's already have odds on whether you'll actually make it to the altar. That's disgusting. That's society. Beatrice handed Molly a cup. So, what did he say? Molly wrapped her hands around the warm porcelain, debating how much to reveal. Beatrice was her closest friend, had been since childhood, but she was also Joe's sister. Surely her loyalty lay with her brother. He was intense, Molly finally said. Intense. Beatrice's eyebrows rose. The man stared at you like you were water, and he'd been wandering in the desert for 40 years. Intense seems like an understatement. B. What? I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. Beatrice settled onto the bed beside Molly, her expression growing serious. Joe is devastated, you know. He barely slept either. Kept pacing in the study, drinking father's brandy. Guilt crashed over Molly in waves. I only danced with the Duke. One dance. You know it wasn't the dance, Molly. It was the way you looked at him. Beatrice took Molly's hand gently. I've watched you and my brother together for 23 years. You've never looked at Joe the way you looked at Anthony Hobbs last night. That's not fair. It's completely fair, Beatrice interrupted. And honestly, I'm not sure I blame you. Molly's head snapped up. What? I love my brother, I do. But Molly, Beatrice chose her words carefully. Joe is safe, comfortable. You two are friends who got engaged because your parents thought it was a good match, and neither of you was brave enough to say no. I care for Joe. Caring isn't loving, not the way you deserve to be loved. Beatrice squeezed her hand. I want my brother to be happy, but I also want you to be happy. And if I'm honest, I'm not sure you've ever been truly happy with him. Just content, just comfortable, just safe. Tears pricked Molly's eyes. You think I should break the engagement? I think you should figure out what you want, not what everyone else wants for you. Beatrice stood, smoothing her skirts. But you should probably figure it out fast, because according to the morning gossip, the Duke of Ravenshire has been asking about you. Your schedule, your favorite places, your habits. That's concerning. That's hunting, Beatrice corrected. And from what I know of Anthony Hobbs, when he hunts something, he doesn't stop until he catches it. After Beatrice left, Molly tried to lose herself in routine. She read, practiced piano, reviewed menus with the housekeeper, all the duties of a proper lady preparing for marriage and managing a household. But her mind kept drifting to dark eyes and dangerous words. Tell me you don't feel it. What if you'd been brave enough to choose me by? She was being ridiculous. She'd met the man for all of 10 minutes. This obsessive thinking was absurd, improper, and Lady Molly, her father's voice from the doorway made her jump. Lord Edmund Pearson stood in the entrance to the music room, his expression troubled. Papa! Molly set down her sheet music. Is everything all right? That depends on your definition of all right. Her father crossed the room holding out a folded piece of heavy cream paper sealed with black wax. This arrived for you by private courier. Molly's hands trembled as she took the letter. The seal bore a raven in flight. I haven't opened it, her father said stiffly, though perhaps I should have. The Duke of Ravenshire has no business sending private correspondence to an engaged woman. I'm sure it's just a polite note thanking us for the dance. Molly, her father's voice hardened. I've dealt with men like Anthony Hobbs in business. He doesn't do anything politely, and he certainly doesn't send thank you notes. Whatever is in that letter is designed to achieve one of his goals, and I suspect that goal is you. That's absurd, is it? Her father studied her face. Because last night I watched you dance with that man, and for the first time in your life, you looked alive. Terrifyingly alive. And as your father, that scares me more than I can express. Molly clutched the letter, torn between propriety and curiosity. What are you saying? I'm saying that the Duke of Ravenshire is dangerous, not violent, though rumor suggests he can be, but dangerous in the way he makes people forget themselves. Forget their duties, forget their promises. Her father's expression softened slightly. You are my only daughter, Molly. I have arranged a good match for you with a good man. Please don't throw that away for whatever momentary fascination that letter represents. He left her alone in the music room, the sealed letter burning in her hands. She should throw it away unread. She should give it to Joe as proof of her loyalty. Her fingers broke the seal. The letter contained only 3 lines in bold, slashing handwriting. I wasn't lying when I said I've been preparing for you. The question is, have you been preparing for me? Meet me tomorrow at dawn in Hyde Park by the Serpentine. Molly's breath caught. She should refuse. Should show this to her father, to Joe, to anyone who would stop her from doing something catastrophically stupid. Instead, she found herself wondering what dress to wear to a dawn meeting with a ruthless duke, and hating herself for it. Molly told herself she wasn't going. She prepared for bed early, dismissed her maid, and lay in the darkness, telling herself that tomorrow she would wake up, burn the letter, and focus on her upcoming wedding to Joe like a sensible woman. But at 5 in the morning, she was standing in front of her wardrobe, pulling out her dove gray riding habit. The ride to Hyde Park took 20 minutes through empty London streets. Molly had told no one where she was going, bringing only her most trusted groom, who waited at a discreet distance as she guided her mare toward the Serpentine. The lake was shrouded in morning mist, the water dark and still. For a moment, Molly thought Anthony hadn't come, that this had been some cruel test she just failed. Then she saw him. He stood beside a massive black stallion, dressed in riding clothes that fit him like a second skin. He wasn't looking at the water. He was looking at her, as if he'd known the exact moment she would appear. You came, Anthony said as she dismounted. It wasn't a question. I shouldn't have, but you did. He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving her face. I don't know, Molly admitted, her breath misting in the cold air. Maybe to tell you to stop this, whatever this is. This? Anthony's lips curved slightly. This is me giving you a choice. Every moment we're apart is a moment I'm not giving you the choice to know me, to decide for yourself if what I said was insanity or truth. I'm engaged, Your Grace. Anthony, he interrupted. Say my name. I'm not going to. Say it. His voice dropped, became almost a command. Because I want to hear my name in your voice. Because I've been imagining it for 2 days. Because you've been thinking about me too, or you wouldn't be here. Molly's heart hammered. This is inappropriate. Everything about us is inappropriate. That's not what I asked you. Anthony closed the remaining distance between them until only a foot separated them. Say my name, Molly. The way he said her name, Molly, not Lady Molly, not Lady Pearson, just Molly like she was already his, sent heat flooding through her. Anthony, she whispered, and saw something flare in his dark eyes again. Why? Because I need to know if you feel it too. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away, to step back, to do the proper thing. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with devastating gentleness. This pull, this madness, this feeling that I've been searching for you my entire life and only just found you. Molly should have stepped away. should have slapped his hand, should have done 1,000 things that weren't standing perfectly still, letting a man who wasn't her betrothed touch her face like she was something precious. "I barely know you," she breathed. "Then let me fix that." Anthony's thumb traced her lower lip, and Molly's eyes fluttered closed before she could stop them. "Let me tell you about the man who's been preparing for you. The man who wants to give you everything your safe, comfortable life with that boy never will. Joe is a good man. Joe is a boy playing at being a man. He's comfortable, safe, boring." Anthony's voice roughened. "He will give you a perfectly acceptable life, perfectly acceptable marriage, perfectly acceptable everything. And in 20 years, you'll wake up and realize you've lived half a life because you were too afraid to reach for more. That's not fair to him. I don't care about fair." Anthony's hand slid to the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in the hair at her nape. "I care about you, about the woman I see trying to break free from behind those perfect manners. The woman who spent a year in Florence painting because it was the one time she did something for herself instead of everyone else. How do you know about Florence? I told you I make it my business to know." His forehead nearly touched hers now, their breath mingling in the cold air. "I know you read scandalous novels in secret. I know you sometimes look at your life and feel like you're suffocating. I know that when you agreed to marry Joe, you cried for 3 days and everyone thought it was from happiness. But it wasn't, was it?" Molly's eyes snapped open, tears burning. "How could you possibly—" "Your maid talks to my valet. Your gardener is friends with my stableman. Your governess's sister works in my household." Anthony smiled without humor. "I told you, Molly, I've been preparing for you, learning you, understanding you. Because when I finally made my move, I needed to be absolutely certain of one thing." "What thing?" "That you were as miserable in your perfect life as I suspected. That you were as desperate for something real as I was." His other hand came up to frame her face, holding her gently but completely. "That you were worth burning my entire world down for." "You're talking about ruining me," Molly whispered, "destroying my reputation, breaking Joe's heart, devastating my family." "I'm talking about setting you free." Anthony's eyes burned into hers. "I'm talking about giving you permission to want more than what's been handed to you. I'm talking about being brave enough to choose yourself." "I can't." "Yes, you can." His thumb stroked her cheek, catching a tear. "You're brave, Molly, braver than you've ever been allowed to be. All you need is someone to show you it's possible. And you're that someone? I'm the only someone who's ever going to understand what it costs to break free." Anthony's voice turned rough, almost vulnerable. "Because I know what it's like to live according to everyone else's expectations. To bury who you really are until you forget that person ever existed. I've spent 10 years being the ruthless Duke of Ravenshire, the man without mercy, the man who destroys everything he touches. And then I saw your portrait, and I remembered that I used to be someone else, someone who could feel, someone who could want." "What happened?" Molly asked softly. "What made you so cold?" "Love," Anthony said simply, "and loss, and 10 years of convincing myself I was better off alone than risking that pain again." He leaned closer, his lips nearly brushing hers. "Until you." "Anthony, Lee, let me court you." The words were barely a whisper. "Give me 6 weeks. If at the end of that time you still want to marry Joe, I'll disappear. I'll never contact you again. I'll even give his father the business deal that will save the White family from bankruptcy." Molly pulled back slightly. "What? Did you really think Joe's father arranged this marriage out of fondness?" Anthony's expression hardened. "Lord Edward White is drowning in debt from failed investments. Your dowry and your father's connections are all that stand between his family and financial ruin. Joe might love you, but this engagement, it's a business transaction." The words hit like physical blows. "That's not true." "It's completely true. I can show you the documents if you'd like." Anthony's tone gentled. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you, Molly. I'm telling you because you deserve to know what you're really choosing. A marriage of convenience dressed up as friendship. A life of comfort built on lies." Molly's mind reeled. Could it be true? Cryo. Had her entire engagement been orchestrated by desperate men making deals? 6 weeks, Anthony said again. Let me show you what life could be if you were brave enough to reach for it. If you still choose Joe and after that, I'll accept it. But at least you'll have chosen with full knowledge of what you're giving up. Molly looked at him, really looked at him. This dangerous, ruthless man who had somehow seen her more clearly in 2 days than Joe had in 20 years. This man who was offering her the one thing no one else ever had, a choice. 6 weeks, she heard herself say. But secretly, if anyone finds out, they won't. Not from me. Anthony's smile was fierce and triumphant. I'll court you in the shadows, Molly, in stolen moments and secret meetings. And I'll show you exactly what it feels like to be chosen for yourself, not for your dowry or your name or your convenience. He kissed her hand, his lips burning against her skin, then stepped back. Tomorrow, same time, same place, he mounted his stallion in one fluid motion. Wear something you can move in. I'm taking you somewhere that perfect ladies aren't supposed to go. Then he was gone, disappearing into the mist like a dark dream. And Molly stood alone by the serpentine, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. The next 6 weeks became a double life. By day, Molly was the perfect Earl's daughter. She attended tea with Joe's mother. She reviewed wedding plans. She smiled at guests and accepted congratulations and played the role everyone expected. But before dawn, she was someone else entirely. She met Anthony every morning by the serpentine. Sometimes they rode through the empty park, racing their horses like wild things. Sometimes they talked for hours, sitting on the cold ground while the world woke around them. Sometimes they simply looked at each other, and that was enough. Anthony was nothing like she'd expected. Yes, he was ruthless in business. Yes, he was dangerous when crossed. But with her, he was different. Patient, funny, devastatingly intelligent. He challenged every assumption she'd ever made about herself, about life, about what she was capable of becoming. Tell me something true, Anthony said one morning as they sat shoulder to shoulder on a bench overlooking the water. Something you've never told anyone. Molly considered. Around them, Hyde Park was coming alive, with early morning riders and servants. They sat close enough to touch but never did, not where others might see. I don't want children, Molly admitted quietly. Everyone assumes I do. Joe certainly does. But the idea of being someone's mother terrifies me. I want to paint, travel, read books, and argue about philosophy and see the world. I don't want to spend my life managing a nursery. She waited for judgment, for disappointment, for the inevitable lecture about a woman's duty. Anthony just nodded. Then don't. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. He turned to face her. Your Lady Molly Pearson. Future Duchess of Ravenshire, if you'll have me. You could fill your life with art and travel and books. You could fund schools or sponsor artists or do whatever the hell makes you happy. You don't need anyone's permission, Molly. You just need to stop asking for it. Society. Fuck society. The crude word made her gasp, but Anthony didn't apologize. Society is just a collection of people who peaked 20 years ago and spend their time judging anyone brave enough to actually live. Their opinions mean nothing. They mean everything to my family. Your family will adjust or they won't, but you only get one life, Molly, one chance to be yourself, and you're wasting it trying to make everyone else comfortable. His words were harsh, but they ignited something in her chest. Something that had been dormant for so long, she'd forgotten it existed. Hope. Tell me something true, Molly countered, turning the question back on him. Something you've never told anyone. Anthony was quiet for so long, she thought he might refuse. Then, I killed the woman I loved. Molly's breath caught. What? 10 years ago, I was engaged to Lady Margaret Sinclair. Beautiful, kind, everything a man should want. Anthony stared at the water, his jaw tight. We were riding one night, racing, like fools. My horse stumbled. I fell, and while I lay there unconscious, her horse bolted, carried her right off a cliff edge. Anthony, they found her body 2 days later, broken on the rocks. His voice was utterly flat, emotionless in the way of someone who has told this story too many times. I spent 10 years believing I killed her with my recklessness, believing I didn't deserve happiness, believing I was better off alone. But it was an accident, was it? Anthony finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke her. A week ago, Lady Victoria Harlow, my former companion, told me something. She said Margaret's horse didn't bolt. Someone cut its saddle girth. Someone wanted her dead, and I was just convenient collateral damage. Horror washed over Molly. Who would do such a thing? Simon Gray, the Duke of Thornfield. My business rival. Anthony's hands clenched. Apparently, Margaret had rejected his advances repeatedly, so he decided if he couldn't have her, no one could. He used me as the perfect scapegoat, the reckless lover who got his betrothed killed through negligence. That's monstrous. That's the world we live in, Molly. The world of titles and power and men who think they own women like property. Anthony's eyes hardened. Which is why I'll kill him if he ever comes near you. Why have I had men watching you since the night we met? Why do I need you to understand that this isn't just courtship? It's war, and you're the prize I refuse to lose. The possessive words should have frightened her. Instead, Molly felt a strange thrill. I'm not a prize. No, you're not. Anthony's expression softened. You're the woman I'd burn the world down for. There's a difference. Over the following weeks, Anthony showed Molly London she'd never seen. They visited warehouses where he was building schools for orphaned children. They walked through the rookeries at dawn, distributing food to the poor. They attended underground boxing matches where Anthony bet recklessly and laughed when he lost. With every meeting, Molly felt herself transforming. The perfect lady fell away like dead skin, revealing someone stronger, fiercer, more alive underneath. But they also grew closer in ways that terrified her. One morning, Anthony brought her to his private study, a room no one was allowed to enter. He showed her his deceased mother's paintings, his father's letters, the core of vulnerability he'd hidden from the world for a decade. No one sees this, he said quietly, watching her examine a watercolor of a young boy and his mother. Not my business partners, not my friends. No one. Why me, Molly asked, understanding the weight of the gift. Because you see me anyway. Anthony moved behind her, close enough that she could feel his heat. Because you're the only person who's ever looked past the Duke and seen Anthony. The only person I've ever wanted to let in. Molly turned, and they were so close she could see the different shades of brown in his eyes and could count each individual eyelash. We can't keep doing this, she whispered. I know. It's getting harder to pretend. I know. Anthony, what are we? He kissed her. It was nothing like she'd imagined a first kiss would be. There was no gentleness, no tentative exploration. Anthony kissed her like a man starving, like she was air and he'd been drowning, like he'd die if he couldn't taste her. And Molly kissed him back with equal desperation. They broke apart, both breathing hard, and Molly saw her entire future fork into two completely different paths. One path led to safety, comfort, a life lived according to plan. The other led to Anthony, to passion and chaos and terrifying, devastating love. Choose me, Anthony whispered against her lips. Please, Molly, choose me. But before she could answer, the study door burst open. Joe stood in the doorway, his face white with shock and betrayal, and Molly's double life shattered into pieces. The silence lasted approximately 3 seconds. Then Joe's careful composure cracked like ice. How long? His voice shook with barely controlled fury. How long have you been sneaking around behind my back? Molly tried to find words, but her throat had closed. Guilt crashed over her in waves so powerful she thought she might drown. Anthony, by contrast, stepped calmly in front of Molly, protective, unapologetic. 6 weeks, he said simply. 6. Joe's face went from white to red. 6 weeks. The entire time you've been planning our wedding, you've been... He couldn't finish, his hands clenching into fists. Joe, please, Molly finally managed, moving around Anthony. Let me explain. Explain, Joe laughed, but there was no humor in it. What's there to explain, Molly? You've been carrying on an affair with him, the Duke of Ravenshire. The man I specifically told you to stay away from. We haven't. Molly's face burned. We've only just kissed. Just now. This was the first. Oh, well, that makes it so much better. Joe's sarcasm cut like a blade. You've only been emotionally unfaithful for 6 weeks. You've only been lying to me for 6 weeks. You've only been meeting him in secret every morning while I've been planning our life together like a complete fool. You followed me, Molly realized. Why would you? Because I'm not blind, Joe shouted, losing the last of his control. For weeks you've been distant, distracted, looking at me like I'm a stranger. This morning I saw you leave before dawn, again. So yes, I followed you, and I wish to God I hadn't, because at least then I could have kept my illusions. Molly felt tears burning. Joe, I never wanted to hurt you, but you did it anyway. Joe's voice broke. I've loved you since we were children, Molly. You've been my best friend for 23 years, and you threw it all away for him? For a man known throughout London as heartless? A man who destroys everything he touches? I'm standing right here, Ashford, Anthony said quietly, dangerously. Good, then you can hear this. Joe turned his fury on the Duke. She'll never be yours, not really, because even if you steal her from me, even if you force her into some scandalous marriage, she'll always know what she gave up, who she betrayed, the life she could have had if you hadn't manipulated her with your wealth and power and whatever lies you've been feeding her. Lies? Anthony's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Tell her, Ashford. Tell Molly why you really want to marry her. Joe's face went white again. What? Tell her about your father's debts. Tell her about the business deals that went south. Tell her how the White family is 3 months from bankruptcy without her dowry. Anthony's smile was cruel. Or should I? You bastard, Joe breathed. Is it true? Molly looked between them, feeling like the floor was crumbling beneath her feet. Joe, is what he's saying true? It's not, it's more complicated. Yes or no, Joe? Molly's voice rose. Is your family in financial trouble? Joe's silence was enough. Oh, God. Molly pressed her hands to her face. The engagement. Your father pushed so hard for this match. All those dinner conversations about beneficial alliances. I thought you loved me. I do love you. Joe crossed the room, grabbing her shoulders. Molly, I do. Yes, my father has financial reasons for wanting this marriage. Yes, your dowry will help. But that doesn't change how I feel, doesn't it? Molly pulled away, something breaking inside her. How can I trust anything you've said? How can I know what's real and what's been financial strategy? Because you know me. Joe's desperation was palpable. I've been by your side for 23 years. I've never lied to you about my feelings. Never. That has to count for something. It does count, Molly said softly. It counts for everything, Joe, but what? But I don't love you. The words emerged quiet and devastating. Not the way I should, not the way you deserve. Joe stepped back as if she'd struck him. Molly, I care about you, I always will. You're my oldest friend. But friendship isn't love, Joe. Comfort isn't passion. And I can't marry you knowing that I'm feeling things for another man that I've never felt for you. Things you've felt for all of 6 weeks, Joe said bitterly. Molly, what you're feeling isn't a love. It's infatuation, lust, the thrill of doing something forbidden. In 6 months, you'll realize what you've lost. Maybe, Molly admitted. Maybe I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Maybe this will all end in disaster. But at least I'll have chosen. At least I'll have been brave enough to reach for what I want instead of settling for what everyone expects. Settling. Joe's voice went flat. 23 years of friendship, 10 years of betrothal, all the nights I've listened to your dreams, supported your interests, been there for you, and you call that settling. I'm sorry, Molly whispered. I'm so sorry, Joe. You deserve someone who loves you completely, who chooses you without hesitation, who doesn't spend 6 weeks sneaking around with another man because she's too much of a coward to admit the engagement was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Joe's voice rose again. We could have been happy, Molly. We could have had a good life. A good life isn't enough. The words burst out of Molly with shocking force. I'm 23 years old, Joey. Whoa, Joe. I'm supposed to live for another 50, 60 years, and I can't spend that time being good enough or comfortable or safe. I want more. I want passion. I want to feel alive. I want him. Joe's expression turned bitter as he looked at Anthony. You want him. Molly followed his gaze to where Anthony stood, silent and watchful throughout the entire exchange. The Duke met her eyes with an intensity that made her breath catch. Did she want him, this dangerous man who had upended her entire life? This ruthless Duke who saw her more clearly than anyone ever had? This person who made her feel like she could be herself instead of a perfect copy of what everyone expected? Yes, Molly heard herself say. I want him. Joe's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the devastated silence that followed. Then he straightened, his face hardening into a mask Molly had never seen before. Fine. The word was cold, clipped. You've made your choice. But understand this, Molly, when you end this engagement, you're not just losing me. You're losing my family's support, Beatrice's friendship, your reputation. Your father will be humiliated. Your mother will be devastated. And for what? For a man who will likely tire of you in 6 months. That's enough, Ashford, Anthony growled. No, it's not nearly enough. Joe's eyes never left Molly's face. When this falls apart, and it will fall apart, don't come crawling back. Don't expect me to pick up the pieces. Don't expect me to forgive you for throwing away everything we could have had together. He turned and walked to the door, but paused on the threshold. I loved you, Molly, truly loved you. Remember that when you're lying in bed at night, wondering if you made the right choice. Then he was gone, the door closing with devastating finality. Molly stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, her entire world in ruins around her. Anthony moved to her side but didn't touch her. Molly, what have I done? She whispered. What have I done? The scandal broke within hours. By noon, all of London knew that Lady Molly Pearson had been discovered in a compromising position with the Duke of Ravenshire. By tea time, the whispers had morphed into outright accusations. An affair, a pregnancy, a secret elopement already underway. Molly sat in her father's study, numb as Lord Edmund Pearson paced like a caged animal. Ruin, her father muttered, running his hands through his hair. Utterly ruined. The White family is demanding compensation. The wedding has been called off. Of course it's been called off. And every invitation we've received has been rescinded. Do you understand what you've done, Molly? Do you understand the consequences of your reckless, selfish behavior? Edmund, Lady Catherine Pearson spoke from her chair by the window, her voice quiet but firm. That's enough. Enough! Lord Edmund whirled on his wife. Our daughter has destroyed her reputation, humiliated a respected family, and brought scandal down on our heads. How is that enough? Because she's in pain. Lady Catherine rose, moving to stand beside Molly. Look at her, Edmund. Really look at her. Molly felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, warm and steady. She'd been crying for hours, her eyes swollen and raw, her heart feeling like it had been physically torn from her chest. I never wanted this, Molly whispered. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But you did, her father said brutally. You hurt Joe. You hurt his family. You hurt us. And for what? For Anthony Hobbs? A man with a reputation for ruthlessness? A man who hasn't cared about anyone in 10 years? He cares about me. Does he? Lord Edmund leaned forward. Or does he care about winning? About taking something that belonged to another man? About adding you to his list of conquests? Stop it, Lady Catherine said sharply. You're being cruel. I'm being realistic. Her father's voice rose. In 6 months, when the Duke tires of her, as he will, what then? She'll be a ruined woman. Unmarriageable. A social pariah. Is that the future you want for our daughter? I want her to be happy, Lady Catherine said simply. The words hung in the air like a revelation. Lord Edmund stared at his wife. What? I want Molly to be happy, Lady Catherine repeated, stronger now. Not comfortable, not respectable, happy. And if that means choosing love over duty, passion over propriety, then so be it. Have you lost your mind? No, I've lived in your world for 25 years, Edmund, and I've learned something important. Lady Catherine's eyes were fierce. A life lived according to everyone else's expectations is no life at all. It's a slow death of the soul. I won't let our daughter suffer the same fate I have. Molly looked up sharply. Mother? I married your father because it was expected, because my parents arranged it, because it was the sensible choice. Lady Catherine's smile was sad. And I've spent 25 years being content, being proper, being everything a countess should be. But happy? Truly happy? I stopped asking myself that question years ago. Catherine, Lord Edmund's voice had lost some of its anger, replaced by something that sounded like hurt. I don't regret our marriage, Lady Catherine said gently, turning to her husband. You're a good man, Edmund, a wonderful father. But we both know our marriage is built on duty and respect, not passion, not the kind of love that makes your heart race and your soul sing. She looked back at Molly. If our daughter has found that kind of love, I won't let society's opinions destroy it. But the scandals fade, regret doesn't. Lady Catherine squeezed Molly's shoulder. If you love Anthony Hobbs, truly love him, then fight for him. Society be damned. Before Molly could respond, the study door burst open. Beatrice stood in the doorway, her face flushed and furious. Behind her, a footman tried apologetically to explain that he couldn't stop her. Where is she? Beatrice demanded, her eyes finding Molly. There you are. Beatrice, save it. Beatrice crossed the room in 3 strides. I came to tell you that my brother is destroying himself. He's locked in his room, drinking, refusing to see anyone. My father is talking about demanding a duel with the Duke. My mother won't stop crying. And it's all your fault. Molly flinched as if struck. But, Beatrice continued, her voice softening slightly, I also came to tell you that you did the right thing. Everyone stared at her. What? Lord Edmund sputtered. She did the right thing, Beatrice repeated, looking directly at Molly. I love my brother, I do. But Molly, you and Joe would have made each other miserable. You would have been trapped in a marriage of convenience, pretending to be happy while dying inside. At least this way, you're both free to find real love, even if it hurts right now. Your brother doesn't see it that way. Of course he doesn't. He's heartbroken. He's humiliated. He feels betrayed. Beatrice sat beside Molly, taking her hand. But in time, he'll understand. He'll find someone who loves him completely, not just comfortably. And you? She squeezed Molly's fingers. You get your ruthless Duke, assuming he's worth all this drama. He is, Molly whispered. I think he is. Then go to him. What? Go to him, Beatrice repeated. Right now, before your father locks you in your room or society convinces you that you made a mistake. Go to Anthony Hobbs and tell him you choose him, that you're done apologizing for wanting more than what was expected of you. I can't just, yes, you can. Beatrice stood, pulling Molly to her feet. You can and you will, because I refuse to watch another woman in my life settle for less than she deserves. Go. Molly looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly, at her father, who looked torn between fury and resignation, at Beatrice, who smiled with fierce pride. Go, Lady Catherine echoed. Before you lose your courage. Molly went on. She ran through the house, ignoring servants' shocked expressions, and burst into the London streets without a chaperone, without a plan, without anything except the certainty that she needed to see Anthony. She needed to know if destroying her old life had been worth it. She needed to know if he would catch her when she fell. Molly arrived at Anthony's Mayfair townhouse breathless and wild-eyed. The butler, clearly shocked to see an unchaperoned lady on the doorstep, tried to turn her away. But Molly pushed past him with a determination that surprised even herself. Anthony, she called into the vast marble foyer. Anthony, where are you? Footsteps thundered from above. Anthony appeared at the top of the grand staircase, his jacket discarded, his shirt open at the throat. his dark hair disheveled. Molly? He descended the stairs 3 at a time. What are you doing here? If anyone sees you, I don't care. I schizo. The words burst out of her. I don't care who sees. I don't care about scandal or reputation or what society thinks. I came to tell you that I choose you. Anthony stopped 3 feet away, his expression unreadable. You're in shock. You're upset. Go home, Molly. Think about this when you're calmer. No. Molly closed the distance between them. I've spent my entire life being calm, being rational, being the perfect daughter who does exactly what's expected. And it's made me miserable. Molly, you asked me to choose you, she continued, her voice gaining strength. 6 weeks ago, by the Serpentine, you told me to be brave enough to choose myself. Well, I'm choosing. I'm choosing passion over comfort. I'm choosing you over safety. I'm choosing the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of real love over the quiet death of a convenient marriage. Do you understand what you're giving up? Anthony's jaw was tight. Your reputation is in shreds. Your father will likely disown you. Joe's family will become your enemies. Society will turn its back on you, all because of me. No, all because of me. Molly reached up to touch his face, feeling the rough stubble under her palm. Because I was brave enough to want more. Because I met a man who saw me, really saw me, and refused to let me keep hiding. Because for the first time in my life, I feel alive. Anthony caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. What if I hurt you? What if everyone is right and I'm too broken, too ruthless, too damaged to give you the love you deserve? Then hurt me. Molly's eyes filled with tears. Break my heart. Destroy me, but at least I'll have lived. At least I'll have felt something real instead of spending my whole life in comfortable numbness. Molly, I love you, she said, the words raw and honest. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know it makes no logical sense. But I love you, Anthony Hobbs. I love your darkness and your pain and your ruthlessness and your vulnerability. I love that you challenge me and see me and refuse to let me be less than I'm capable of becoming. And if you don't feel the same, he kissed her. Not the desperate kiss from his study, but something whooper. Something that felt like a promise and a prayer and a pledge all at once. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Anthony rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said roughly. I've loved you since I saw your portrait, since I watched you dance at your engagement ball and saw the wild spirit you were trying so hard to hide, since the first dawn meeting when you showed up even though every rule told you not to. Then why are you pushing me away? Because I'm terrified. The admission seemed torn from him. Because everyone I've ever loved has been destroyed. My mother died when I was 10. My father followed 2 years later. Margaret was killed in what I now know was murder. And you, God, Molly, you're so bright and beautiful and full of life. What if loving me extinguishes that? What if I make you as dark and broken as I am? You won't. Molly took his face in both hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Because I won't let you. Because we'll be broken together, healing each other. Because that's what real love does. It doesn't complete you. It challenges you to complete yourself. Anthony's eyes glistened. You deserve better than me. I deserve exactly you. Molly smiled through her tears. The ruthless Duke who fought his way back from grief. The man who builds schools for orphans while maintaining a reputation for heartlessness. The person who saw me drowning in duty and threw me a lifeline, even knowing it would cause chaos. Marry me. The words weren't a question. Today, now, before anyone can stop us. Before you change your mind. Before the world talks you out of this beautiful, reckless decision. Yes, Molly breathed. Yes, yes, yes. He kissed her again, deeper this time. And Molly felt the last of her old life falling away. The dutiful daughter. The perfect lady. The woman who lived according to everyone else's plans. She was becoming someone new. Someone braver. Someone who chose love over everything else. There's something you need to know, Anthony said when they broke apart. About Simon Gray. About the kidnapping threat that's been circling you. Molly's stomach dropped. What? My men intercepted a plot yesterday. Gray hired men to abduct you, to force me into surrendering my shipping contracts. Anthony's expression turned lethal. He's using you to get to me. That's why I've had men watching you since the engagement ball. Why have I been so careful about where we meet? What are we going to do? We're going to get married, Anthony said simply, and then we're going to destroy him. Together. Before Molly could respond, shouting erupted outside. Through the windows, she saw carriages arriving. Her father's coach, Joe's family carriage, and a third she didn't recognize. They've come to separate us, Molly said. Would let them try. Anthony's arm wrapped around her waist, protective and possessive. You're mine now, Molly. I'll fight anyone who tries to take you from me. The door burst open. Lord Edmund stormed in, followed by Joe, Lord Edward White, and Lady Victoria Harlow. The woman was beautiful, with auburn hair and sharp green eyes that swept the scene with calculated malice. How touching, Victoria purred. The ruthless Duke has finally found someone to care about. How unfortunate that it makes him vulnerable. She pulled out a pistol. Step away from Lady Molly, Victoria commanded, her voice cold, or I'll show you exactly what happens to the things Anthony Hobbs loves. And in that moment, Molly understood. This wasn't just about choosing love over duty. It was about being brave enough to fight for that choice. No, Molly said, stepping in front of Anthony. If you want to hurt him, you'll have to go through me first. Victoria's eyes widened with genuine surprise. You'd die for him? I'd do more than that, Molly said steadily. I'd live for him, fight for him, destroy anyone who threatens what we have. So lower the gun, Lady Victoria, or learn exactly how ruthless the new Duchess of Ravenshire can be. Behind her, Molly felt Anthony's chest rumble with laughter, genuine, delighted laughter she'd never heard from him before. That's my girl, he murmured, stepping beside her. United. That's my fearless, brilliant girl. And as Anthony's security men flooded the room, as Victoria's plot crumbled and the guests watched in shock, Molly realized something profound. She hadn't just chosen Anthony, she'd chosen herself. And that was the most ruthless, revolutionary choice of all. 6 months later, Anthony and Molly married in a small, scandalous ceremony with only close friends in attendance, including eventually a reconciled Joe, who had found love with a French diplomat's daughter who actually appreciated his kindness. The Duke and Duchess of Ravenshire became London's most fascinating couple, ruthless in business, passionate in private, and utterly devoted to each other. Molly opened an art school for young women. Anthony expanded his charitable empire. Together, they destroyed Simon Gray's business holdings and exposed his role in Margaret's death. And every morning at dawn, they still met by the Serpentine. Not out of duty or habit, but out of choice. The choice to keep choosing each other every single day. Don't forget to subscribe. If you love this story of forbidden love, ruthless dukes, and the brave choices that change everything, smash that subscribe button. We upload new historical romance stories 3 times a week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Drop a comment telling me, would you have chosen the Duke or the Viscount? Team Anthony or Team Joe? Let's debate in the comments. And if you made it this far, you're a real one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.